And I was going to say, I'm loving it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But for trademark purposes, I was like, whoops, got to hit a different note. Got to take
Right.
off.
Because
Don't want the
McDonald's
cease
is
and
going to see our podcast for sure.
Never can tell. That cease and desist letter, bam, on its way.
If any McDonald's execs are watching, we'd love a sponsorship.
That'd be great.
Yeah. We could have like a Nuggets segment.
A nugget segment?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. If it's food you like,
We
you'd
could
be
have-
happy for any sponsorship if they gave you free food while we're recording.
Sure.
It not money or anything. You just drop free nuggets, you're willing to sponsor them.
What do you have to use to pay to get nuggets?
Okay. Yes, I get that.
Nuggets are money, dude. Golden McNuggets.
Do you know that, okay, so you've got the 6-piece little kid version. Well, I think the little kid version's 4. So you go 4,
What
6.
a meaningless little pack of nuggets.
But you've got 10. You've got the 10-piece. That's the order on the menu. You have what we call the shame box. Shout out to the Flip the Table guys. The shame box, which is a 20-piece. And if you still got any self-esteem left, they have a 40-piece now. You're welcome.
Yeah, they do. Well, now, in all fairness, it's not. It's 220. It's 2 shame boxes.
It is 2 shame boxes. And they're packaging it as a family meal. They're dudes who have ordered it solo. You know that. Hey, last time we talked about gaps that exist in our relationships and how we can fill them with either trust or suspicion. And today we're going to reflect on how we can be trustworthy. So let's take a look at that.
You are watching the Beyond Sunday podcast.
All right, dude. So hit me. Today we're going to be talking about actually being trustworthy.
Yeah.
So if we want people to extend trust to us in those gaps, we need to bring our own game to the table. So hit it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, and you said it like if you summed up the entire thing. I want you to listen to the whole episode, but if you sum up the entire thing,
Right.
if you
Here it is.
want to build trust, you have to be trustworthy.
Sure. That's fair.
So often we can get frustrated because we feel like people don't trust us. But I think we have to be really, really honest with ourselves
All right.
and ask some super tough questions or tough question,
One.
am I trustworthy? And then take a look at every area of your life where, again, so we've been talking about these gaps.
Right.
Where am I creating gaps because I'm not trustworthy? Am I the person who is always late?
Right.
Hey, like we're supposed to meet at 5 o'clock and I text at 5:02 and say, hey, on my way, as if that's normal.
Right.
You're late. And
Right.
so sometimes, well, a lot of times, we have tendencies that are habits,
Mm-hmm.
yet still we expect all of this trust from people. It's like,
Right.
What?
Where's this coming from?
what's
Why are
wrong
being
with you?
suspicious?
Why don't you, why are you being all sus at me? Why are you not trust me?
It's just-
Well, because you're not trustworthy.
You
You're
know-
always late.
Yeah.
You don't shower. Whatever. I don't know. Just for an example.
That got really judgy all of a sudden, and I just want to put out
And
that-
oddly specific. I'm not talking about anybody.
Right. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if you're talking about
Just
anybody
kidding.
specific. No. But yeah, by the way, you're getting too old to talk like that now. Just so you know. You're joining the rest of us old folks. She can probably get away with it, but you got to stop talking
Yeah.
like that from now on. But yeah, so when it comes to, we're just sidetracking all over the place, but when it comes to being trustworthy, I think, that's one of the things that can happen a lot is that we want something back. I want to be trusted. I want that grace, and, recommend you're always still operating in trust and grace. But sometimes it gets hard when that relationship piece goes, I keep extending it out. And we talked about that before, just that idea of, man, this person's going to abuse this.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't want that extra tension in the relationship, let's start by being trustworthy. And I think a lot of it comes from having integrity.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we look at the word integrity, I think nowadays we just think of like, oh yeah, I'm not lying. I'm being honest. But Dr. Henry Cloud does a great job. His book, Integrity, talks about it's really not just moral fortitude. Yes, that's part of it. I'm an honest person, but it's being an integrated person. There's a reliability, a consistency, a fullness in you. And I think that is one of the biggest things that really lends towards that trustworthiness. So, are you truthful and honest? Are you consistent? And one of the biggest things, do your responses, the things that you say, do they end up matching an outcome somewhere? Hey, I'll meet you at 5. Actually, I know for a fact that's going to be more like 5:15, or whatever. It's a small thing, but I have a good friend that great guy, love him, love hanging out with him. But every time it's like, hey, let's meet at 1:30. I know that at about 1:25 every time, it's going to be probably going to be more like 1:45.
Running just a bit behind.
Right. And so at least, he's always saying, hey, by the way, I'm running behind. He's considerate, but the consistency is when I plan, hey, 1:30, I know it's probably going to be more like 1:45. So
it's kind of like, it's considerate-ish, if we're honest.
Considerate-ish.
Because
okay, fair.
it's considerate about being inconsiderate. At its core, it's selfish when we are only operating on our own time clock,
right,
and we're not choosing to create those opportunities for grace and
right.
building trust. We build trust by actually being consistent.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm guilty of this so bad, whether it's me personally running late to meetings or having people that, like when we invite people over for dinner, it's like you'll have these what seem like trivial, funny conversations about, oh, yeah, we know they're going to be late. So we don't really want, like, let's say dinner's at 6:30.
Right.
We have a dinner party coming over, and you have a set of friends, and you're like, we told them 6:30, but let's plan to have dinner ready at 6:45.
Okay.
Because I don't want my food to get cold, and they're not going to be on time.
Interesting. So at that point, somebody's really not necessarily, you may not even say anything to them or anything else, but gap created, a consistent gap, in this case is what we're talking about. And at that point, you're going, I'm just going to be suspicious and plan for I'm going to plan for you to actually drop the ball. It's probably not the best approach for us, honestly.
It's not.
But
it's
it
not
happens.
at all.
But it happens totally.
I remember when we traveled in the band that I was a part of, we would have some really, really early morning call times before we'd leave out on runs of dates and stuff like that. And so let's say we were meeting at 5 a.m. and we were going to hit the road. So it's like, hey, we're leaving at 5, be there 4:45. We would tell one person in our band, be there at 4:30 or 4:15.
Just so that he makes it on time.
He was going to be late. And here's the deal. It worked for a while and was like, we figured it out. We got to work around here, until he found out. And he showed up on time once, and he's like, where's everybody at?
Oh,
well, we're leaving at 4:45. It's like, well,
you guys told me
4:15. And it's like,
busted. Wow, that's interesting. So yeah, he, on the backside of all that, experienced what you filled the gap with then.
Which was ungood.
Right. It is an ungood situation. But yeah, I think the best thing that we can do is, so yeah, we've talked about the fact that we need to extend grace to people, but it's so vital that relationships are two-sided. We have to be trustworthy. And so it begins with integrity, but what do we do when, hey, I have dropped the ball because I don't want to be considerate-ish, I think you said. So I don't want to be considerate-ish. So what do I do about that then when I have created that gap?
Yeah, I think it should be our responsibility to, as best as we can, don't surprise people. Always be upfront.
Yeah.
When you say you're running late and something happens, I would always want to receive grace when that happens. Now, if I do it all the time, I have to be honest, I can't expect it all the time.
Yeah.
However, I would want grace extended, so when I have to do that, but when it happens, when I'm going to be late or when I'm going to create a gap,
right,
don't surprise people. Be upfront, be honest.
Right.
Even if you straight up just drop the ball, just be honest about it. That I think that's a huge tool in allowing people to hear that something really happened,
Right.
even if it's a total bonehead move.
Right.
I'm going to own up to it. I don't have excuses. I'm not going to make excuses. Hey, I dropped the ball.
Right.
I'm late. I'm really sorry I let you down.
Right.
I realize that I made you sit for 12 minutes, 15 minutes
Right.
by yourself waiting on me.
Right. Yeah, and as we talked before, I think one of the things that, if you look at like a working example, if you have a project that's due on Friday, Thursday, we're sitting here on Thursday, and you know that this isn't going to get done. Something's come up. The information I need is not going to come in. Maybe there's a quote I'm still waiting on. Whatever that thing is, rather than waiting for Friday to come and go, and the boss or whoever you're working with goes, "Hey, wasn't that thing due?" And now they have to reach out to you. So gap has been created in one sense by saying, "Hey, I don't want you to be surprised. It's Thursday, and I know Fridays are my target date for something." As an example, I'm going to tell you in advance, I'm not going to make it. So in one sense, I'm going to inform you that a gap is going to exist. I'm going to try and actually fill the gap with more information for you so that you can actually hopefully extend some trust into that space a little bit easier.
Yeah. Even though you've dropped the ball, owning your own leadership of it is super, super important.
Right.
Yeah. So exactly. Like I'm gonna just be really honest. I'm not going to get this done on time.
Right.
But how often do we literally know that we're not going to get it done on time,
Right.
but we don't tell people because that's going to be awkward. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're fearful of the gap that we have created or will create. We're fearful of the response that we might get. And on one hand, like, it makes sense. I don't like the feeling that's going to happen.
Okay.
Let's try and avoid it. But what happens is it gets bigger.
Right.
Why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, you knew. Why didn't you tell me? Yeah.
And it's way more uncomfortable now that you waited, but yet we have allowed ourselves to believe that that's always a better option.
Right.
Well, I'll just, instead of being upfront, I'll ask for forgiveness later and hope that it goes okay.
Right. Or, I think if we're honest with ourselves, that sometimes when we know that gap is going to exist, that, it's our fault, we've created it, or maybe it's not even our fault, but it's something that we have a hold in, a responsibility for, maybe it won't even be noticed. Maybe, because it is going to be awkward, maybe I can just slide past. First thing Monday morning, I'll be done. And you don't even notice that gap. And so I think there is kind of
that's where the
low-key,
integrity comes back.
Yes, it's a low-key avoidance that says, maybe I'll just get away with it this time. And we have to be honest. There's that pain point, that awkwardness, that feeling in our self-esteem that we don't like for dropping the ball. And so, by not owning up to it and leaving people technically surprised, we're actually hoping that we'll just dodge the bullet at that point.
So if there is a time where, let's say we don't take the first step, we're not owning it on the front side. We're not explaining the gap that will be created.
Okay. Yeah.
What happens when we get confronted? How do we handle that?
Right. Yeah. We talked about previously when we were talking about filling the gap in on ourselves. I think one of the things that can happen is in that moment, a lot of times natural response is to start justifying things, start explaining. Let me tell you about all the contributing factors that aren't generally my fault. That's going to be helpful. Em is off camera. She's nodding. I'm not sure if
Pushing it
she's
off.
agreeing or if she goes, yeah, that's me. I totally do that. She's agreeing. She says, we'll make our own judgments on that. Now she's mortified over there now. But yeah, the thing is that I think one of the opportunities we have is to really demonstrate integrity again. Not only honesty, but that, hey, I'm a mature, consistent person. When you meet me, you're going to get what you need. You can count on hearing from me honestly, that rather than going, hey, here's all the things that come up. Here's the things that were out of my control. So, hey, just going, actually, that's my fault. That is one of the most disarming things I think you'll ever have a conversation with somebody about is, and I've done this a number of times, and it's so powerful when somebody goes, "Hey, I'm really disappointed because you were going to get this done," and not as a ploy or anything else, just to go, "Actually, that's my fault. I am sorry about that. I dropped the ball on that. I did not get this done." Yeah, I know there are contributing factors and things, but you're already starting to fill a gap a little bit, most likely. And everything I put in there sounds more like, "Oh, I was right to be suspicious."
Yeah, scrambling does not look good
No.
on the receiving end. And I was going to ask you, what does it feel like? So on the reverse side,
Okay.
stand in the place of the leader.
Okay. Yeah.
What does it feel like when somebody is scrambling and hey, let's say even unassuming, you ask, "Hey, did we get this done?"
Okay. Yeah.
And you're asking me as the leader, "Did we get this accomplished?" And I go into a barrel of excuses. All of the things that outside of my control,
Right.
but I'm the leader of a project or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
so I had to get some things done. I didn't. How does it feel as I start listing through all the excuses?
Yeah, to me, I don't know. It feels like a dodge, and it feels like, well, in all honesty, that didn't answer the question. Again, assuming some good leadership here. If you have toxic leadership and things like that, that's a completely different discussion. But
Right.
let's going to assume we start with at least a moderately healthy work environment. If that's the case, and I go, "Hey, did we get this done?" And this barrel of things starts unloading back at you, it's like, that's actually not what I asked.
I'm going to assume no.
Yeah,
by
I'm
the
not
fact that
gonna
you're still talking
assume no.
about this. Yeah, usually if you got it done, you're like, "Yep."
Good to go. Yeah.
Yeah, if you share more than about 10 words, it's no, first of all, and you're fully aware of that
Don't read into
pretty
that.
quickly.
Yeah.
And then you still have to clarify at the end.
Right.
So
Well, and
no.
it makes it feel like when I have other questions. So yes, it must be a no that we're dealing with, but it sounds like you're on a defensive ground. So this is going to get really difficult to figure out. Well, what do we need to do? But yet, when you go, "Hey, did we get that done?" Nope, I actually ran into a snag. Couldn't get that done. The next thing, hopefully, is, but here's the plan. Here's where I'm moving forward. The gap's there. I'm going to just own my part. No, I didn't get that done. That's my fault. But here's what I'm going to be doing. And now, again, if you have good integrity and the relationship's there and you're consistent, that person that you've just explained it to hopefully is going, "Okay, I believe you. You said there was an issue. And now maybe we can talk about, hey, what went wrong?" But we didn't start with, it was something else and not me.
Yeah. How often do you feel like you get into, or at least it can create another gap for kind of a life comparison deal?
Okay.
So when somebody starts to give all the excuses on why they couldn't get their job done,
Oh,
and
okay,
you
I see
start
where
to
you're
think, you're like, "Yeah, now that you mention it, nothing's going on in my life either. I'm not busy either."
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
I somehow figured how to get my job done. For clarity, this is unhealthy.
This is ungood, definitely.
This conversation that oftentimes happens internally, hopefully not externally,
Right.
both unhealthy though.
Sure.
But how often does that happen?
Yeah.
Because you're like, and this is suspicion at its best.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure you're so busy, overwhelmed. Again, clarity. This is bad. Okay,
This is ungood.
Do not do this.
Right. But you're correct.
But we do.
And yeah, I've been in that point, and it does feel bad when you are talking with somebody and they begin to unload something, and it can sound, and this is partially our fault because we put suspicion in a spot now.
Yes.
So I'm already being suspicious that the moment you go, hey, I've got a super busy thing and I'm doing all my thing. I know I've been guilty about the fact of saying exactly what you're thinking internally. Where you're going, yeah, because I'm just loafing around all day, and I know you've got it harder than everybody. Yeah, so
The daggers
starts,
of sarcasm are dangerous.
It just starts tumbling down, and so now we've moved from just generally being suspicious, which widens our gap, to now we're starting to delve into deep judgment. We're getting a little bit toxic, and we're putting a little bit, and we're putting strain in our relationship. But honestly, how often does that happen? Be honest with yourselves. You've thought that. If not, you should trade places, and you should tell people.
It's so uncomfortable to imagine this scenario. I've felt it too many times, but it is so uncomfortable.
Right.
Just thinking about it, it's like, I don't even have hair, and it makes it stand up. I'm just like,
Yeah, I think it's so important that as we look at our trustworthiness, that somebody in the end of the game, what you end up seeing is, you can either count on me to do one of two things. I'm getting things done, or I'm showing up when you expect. I am reliable. I'm not going to create gaps, or because we all make mistakes and always will, that when I do create a gap, you can count on me to own it. You're not going to worry about me dodging it or anything else, that I'm either going to come to you in advance, or when you go, hey, I noticed, you go, oh, wow, that's my fault and I'm sorry.
yeah.
There is an absolute ownness, and really there you can see something as part of that consistency and that maturity. That's not just, wow, I forgot, my bad. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's just buffing things away when you're just constantly, yeah, my bad. That's not really owning it. Owning it actually means that's not how I want to be, and you're going to see something different from me.
Yeah.
But I think those responses really change the way relationships start working then.
Yeah, and I think that's good. When you own it, you begin to do things differently.
Yeah.
If you actually owned it, buffing it. Otherwise, it's like you're swerving from reality. Right. You're like, whoops, my bad. Like, hey, won't let it happen again, boss. Except I will next week.
Feels super smarmy. That's gross.
Yeah, it's not good. When you actually own it, you start to make changes. Right. You start to process, I don't want to do that again. Maybe I don't like the feeling. Maybe I don't like the reality of the way people are seeing me because of what I'm doing. But, to sum up kind of our conversation very simply, like we talked about in the beginning, if you want to be trusted, you have to prove trustworthy. And hopefully we are choosing to give grace as people are walking it out.
Yeah, getting better at it, hopefully. Yeah.
It's a challenge that we all walk through. It's worth it, but allow yourself to ask the hard questions. Where am I not trustworthy? And what do I need to do
Tough question,
to grow and get better at it? In our next episode, we're going to take a little bit of the flip side and talk about preserving unity in these gaps and on the responses. But for now, that's what we know.
This has been another episode of the Beyond Sunday podcast. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe.